Okay, this is lesson 4 on page 111 of Adobe's Creative Suite 6, Design and Web Premium, Digital Classroom. So we're going to making the best selections. The reason I decided to do this is it also deals with the pen tool and some of the more important selection tools. We are going to go over here to Essentials and say Reset Essentials. And then the book does say to restart with the preferences. You can if you want. It's on page 5. I already did that, I believe. And they have this corny saying in here, you have to select it to affect it, but it does kind of ring true. So we're going to start to go to File, Browse and Bridge, and there are the images we're going to be working with. The first one, this is the done one. I'm going to drag it. I have to drag it to Photoshop 6 because I have 3 versions of Photoshop on here. I can't just double click it or it'll open a different version. This is what your final version is going to look like. I'm going to go over here and bring the Layers panel out so you can see it more clearly. I have my thumbnails. These little squares, are thumbnails. So this is a thumbnail of a mask, and these are thumbnails of images. The one you're going to begin with has these guides on it because this is where the copy is going to go. So this is the done one, like I said. You're going to be, and they want you to make sure, let's go to Open. Oh, sorry. Browse and Bridge. I want you to get used to browsing in Bridge. Bridge is really powerful, and for all of the Adobe programs almost, I believe it supports all of them. And we used to have to buy really expensive organizing software, and you don't have to. I mean, it comes with it. So let's go down. I'm going to drag PS, there we go, PS501.psd, and then I'm going to go Save As, underscore, you know the drill, you've done this for a while, underscore work, and save it. So that's how we're going to start, and we're also going to make sure that under View, Snap is checked, which means they want things to snap to guides. But I always like to check Snap to Guides. Let's see what happens if we don't have Snap to Guides on. See, Snap is still on. So I don't know. Snap to Guides. That's what I would do. All we need is the rectangular. See, it would be under here. It lives with the rectangular, the elliptical, the single row marquee, and the single column marquee. If somebody ever finds a use for the single row and column marquee, please let me know. I have not yet, but it doesn't mean that it's not useful. Okay, so I'm going to set my cursor here. In fact, I'm going to zoom in. Command plus, if you're on a PC, Control plus. Now I'm going to put my cursor there and drag a rectangle. Now that I've dragged the rectangle, I'm going to get an adjustment layer. Whenever you have marching ants, which is another term for a selection, when you see those marching ants, when you pull up an adjustment layer, and here are the adjustments over here, when you hover over them, it tells you up here what they are. If you hover long enough, a little yellow tag will come up. Whenever you have marching ants, it will automatically put a layer mask on the layer, whether it's an adjustment layer or an image layer that is in the shape of the marching ants. We're going to get the curves. Now, if you notice, this is what your layer mask looks like. Here are your curves. We're going to drag the curves down. Now it says to drag them down to, change the page. They wanted you to drag it down to 20. Now, what's 20, right? There's a tiny little thing down here that you can pull, and they said output 20. You can type it in, and you notice this is where the anchor point is in the output, and this is the color that they wanted. But sometimes when you first look at this curves, you can't see that, and there's this tiny little thing here that you have to pull down to see this part. Essentially, it's 20% of the original value. Now, at the layers panel, we are going to go File, Save, or Command S, Control S. In class, I'm on a PC. When I'm making this tutorial, I'm on a Mac. Now we're going to turn on the type. Eyeball. See? Eyeball on, eyeball off. So we can see the type or text, poster text. They renamed it. When you type, your layer will often have this on it, what you typed. But you can rename it. And when I do logos, I always rename it because I want to know other details because I know what the logo is. So let's take a look. Now we're going to create, and if you look at the done one, I'm going to move this over. Don't need this open anymore. I'm just going to collapse it. See, this is the icon for properties. It takes time to get to know what icons represent what panels. I'm not even sure if I know all of them now. But we have the rectangle, and we're going to draw a rectangle around the rear light. We're going to go onto the car layer. And I'll tell you right now, I would never, ever do it this way. This is destructive. We're going to be making that a green color. If you take a look over here at the original, I'm going to zoom in, and your book tells you to do it, fine. We're just following the book. But I'm telling you, I think it's bad practice to work destructively. If you can work non-destructively and keep your original pixels, why would you? I mean, you'd have to start over. Let's say you show this to a client and they say, God, I like everything except that green. Well, you're going to have to go get the car and then redo the green and mess around with it when you could have just changed the size or color of the square. Oh well, but maybe that's why we're doing it that way. I don't know, but that's what we're doing. So here's the thing. I was supposed to make, let's go back here. I was supposed to make this perfectly square, and I don't think I did. So I just clicked to make it go away. I think it's better to deselect, get in that habit. But I'm going to make a square, but if it's going to be square, I have to hold the shift key there. And if you remember, if you move inside, as long as you're in a selection tool, and we're in the marquee tool, you can move your selection around. If you want it to be a little smaller or bigger, you go over to Select, Transform Selection, and you can, if you want to make sure you resize it, maintaining the aspect ratio. That's the relationship of the width to the height. And it'll resize from the center if you hold both the Shift and Alt or Option key, depending on what kind of computer you're on. I'm just going to make it a tiny bit bigger and then hit Enter. And there's my size. The headlight's covered. We're going to go up here to Image Adjustments, Hue Saturation. And we're going to put 150, minus 150. And there's the color that's picked. So when you do it this way, not only did we do it right on the car, but we don't have an adjustment layer. But this is, now you have done a destructive change. One last thing I want you to be aware of. In your book on page 117, the word nudge is not spelled with a K. So there's, maybe it's a typo, but some proofreader must have missed it because It says Knudge, and nudge is spelled Nudge. So now we're going to move on. I'm going to deselect, and with the marquee tool I could just click off, but I think it's good to get into the habit of deselecting or Control or Command D, because none of the other selection tools, like the magic wand, if you click off you're just going to reselect other things. So it's better to get in the habit of Command or Control D. That's the shortcut to deselect. So now we're going to select the tire. Let me move this out of the way. I'm going to get the elliptical marquee, and I want to have it create the selection from the center. So I'm going to hold the Option key, and I want it to be a perfect circle, and that's the Shift key. And then I'm going to see I'm pulling. You don't have to be totally perfect. Remember, you have transform selection and move selection. That's pretty good if you ask me, but see, it's not quite big enough. Now, when we get into actions, I'll show you how to make an action. There's no keyboard shortcut. There's our ways to create keyboard shortcuts for things that don't have keyboard shortcuts if you use them a lot. I would probably just pull this a tiny bit like that. And with the arrow keys, make sure, see if I'm in the move tool, I'm in cancel, wait a second, with the arrow keys. Oops. There we go. Not too bad. Not too bad. I'm going to hit enter. Now, remember, if you want to move the selection, as long as you have the cursor looking like a white arrow with a dotted box, you're fine. But if you just happen to think you need to be in the move tool, this is what's going to happen. Not a good idea. Look at your cursor. It's a scissor. I actually think they showed you this in the book, in your book tutorial, with the square. And I forgot, so I'm showing it to you with the circle. Not cut it, copy it. But we need to make sure we copy it in position. So we're going to use Command J. Command J is under Layer, New, Layer via Copy. The keyboard shortcut, Command J, gives you a layer in position, and it copies and pastes in one. I am big on naming things. Always check. And don't rely on Microsoft Word only, because a bear in the woods and bare naked, there, and there. I even see some of my very educated friends, not that I haven't made mistakes too, because I have, make those kinds of mistakes. There you have it. Now we're going to put a motion blur onto this hubcap to make it look like the car is moving. I really like motion blur. It's a lot of fun. So we've got the new layer, and we're going to go up here to Filter, Blur. Never use Blur and Blur More. You have no control over that. Gaussian blur is fine sometimes, but motion blurs gives a really cool effect. Now in your book, it gives a number, let's see, angle 45, and what they actually want is angle 0, and they wanted a distance of 45. Seems like a lot to me, but we can go with that. You can, I think I ended up with it at 35. I like that better, but it's up to you. And I'm going to hit Return or Enter. And notice, this of course is non-destructive, really, because there's your tire. You could have been more destructive about it, I suppose. So now we've finished the car. Hallelujah. We're going to move on to the kite and unsharp mask. So save and Command or Control W, Command or Control W. Go to Browse and Bridge, and let's get PS 502. I would double click. Like I said, I have 3 versions of Photoshop on here, and it'll open it in the cloud. It won't open it in Photoshop 6. Okay, so we're going to do the magic wand, and we're going to do unsharp mask. So you browsed in Bridge and you open 502. We go to save as. Oops, I'm in Firefox there. File, save as, underscore 502. Oops, 502. No, underscore work. So the first thing, the two tools that we're going to be using, Quick Select and Magic Wand, live together. I'm going to move this in a little bit, just in case, just in case it's hard to see on the video. Make sure that the tolerance is at 32. That is the default, but you might get on a computer where somebody had it at 1, or it can go as high as 255. I don't know if I've ever used it at 255. Remember, the higher the tolerance, the more it's going to select pixels that are similar to the one you clicked on. If your background is perfectly one color, 1 or 2 will work just fine. Sometimes it's better to go with 2 because you'll get a little bit of fringing of the background. Of course, we're going to get into refine mask and refine image, so refine selection, and that helps with that a lot. So let's go ahead and grab the magic wand, and we're going to do some little experiments. See if you position it here or here or here. See what it's selecting? Oh, I have it on Add to Selection. If you don't have it on Add to Selection, up here, there's Add to Selection, New Selection, Add to Selection, Subtract, and Intersect. We're going to go over those. It defaults to New Selection. Some things default to Add to Selection. This defaults to just regular, so you're just selecting pieces. So what we're going to do is select the sky. And I got a pretty darn good selection. Go ahead and press Control or Command 0, not O, but 0, so your picture comes forward. It's kind of like fit on screen, but you could double click the hand tool for that also, right over here. So we've got a nice big image here. Now we actually want the kite selected. So we need to go up to Select and Inverse. So now we have the kite selected. This is where we're going to now go to Unsharp Mask. I've made a handout for you because sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand Unsharp Mask. So we're going to go to the filter, under Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. If you don't have these numbers come up, that means you didn't reset when you started. So those are the numbers that come up. This box here, I'm going to go here, and you can see what's happening with the amount slider, the radius slider, and the threshold slider. So we're going to change the amount slider right now to 150. So watch the image. Oops, I went too far. I'm going to type it in. 150. Preview. A little, not a lot. Then we're going to change the threshold to 10. I'm going to type it in. There we go. Preview. go back here, make sure. Preview. Look at, you can see it live preview out in the screen. It's easier to see out here. See where I want? If you're just looking at the image, than if you're just turning preview on and off. So you can really see the difference. Off, well, you can turn it on and off and see it in the screen as well. I'm going to leave it on. And then we're going to leave the radius at 1. That's what our book says. And click OK. So now if you do undo, redo, you have a sharper image. I've actually made you a handout for this. And Julianne Cost, and it is a lynda.com video, but you can see it on, you can Google it and see Unsharp Mask. She does a really good job of explaining it. She does make it into a smart object, which we haven't covered yet, but it doesn't matter. You can still follow her instructions without turning it into a smart object. So I suggest you take a look at that. The URL will be on your handout. The one thing you have to understand about Unsharp Mask is it can make a decent image better. It cannot make a crappy image good. Okay, so make sure we saved it. If we didn't, it will ask us. I'm going to go close, and it's asking me. And you can just hit the S key. You don't even have to click save, and it will save it, which is kind of nice. Then we'll go to File, Browse in Bridge, and get the skier. I'm going to drag it into my Photoshop icon in the dock. There's my skier, and we're going to use the freehand lasso to begin with. Oh, I've got to do a save as, _work. So there's 3 lassos. We're going to use the freehand lasso. There's 2 others that live with it. There's the polygon and the magnetic. But we're going to use the freehand this time. So we're just going to, you have to end where you started. I'm going to draw around my skier. It's really imperfect. This is not a very precise tool. And there you have it. All selected. Talk a little bit about adding to and taking away from a selection. If you hold down the Option key, see that little minus sign? I can go over here and say, I don't want that part there. And maybe I want to get a little closer in here. See how you can edit your selection? And this is way too high up. And this is kind of dorky. There we go. There we go. Now I'm holding the Option key. See the minus? So I'm taking that bit away from the selection. Now I'm going to hold the Shift key because I want the arm still in there. So I'm going to do that, and do that. Great. Now I don't have this part, so I have to hold the Option key again and go and get this part. This is a very sloppy way to do it, but it's to show you adding to and taking away from a selection. At this point, we're going to show you how to save a selection and what all that means. So I want you to get both your Channels panel, open it up, enough so you can see what's happening. I'm going to open this. I'm going to make these thumbnails bigger because I think for tutorials, they should be quite large. So I'm going to make them as large as I can. And same with the panel, with the Channels panel. There we go. So I'm going to have to open this up even more. You're going to learn how to save a selection in this. So you have to go to Select, Save Selection. And it's asking you to name it. It says Operation New Channel. It's going to save it in the Channels panel. So it's really good to know what an alpha channel is, because this is what we're creating, is an alpha channel. If we didn't name it, you know how when you don't name a layer, it's layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. Well, it's the same thing with alphas. If you don't name them, then they will call it alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. But we're naming it snowboarder. So it's going to have the name of snowboarder. I'm going to say okay, and there it is in your channels panel. Okay, we're going to save this file, save, or Command or Control S. And I want to show you how to feather a selection using Refine Edge. Now, when you have marching ants, the Refine Edge button usually pops up in the options bar. If you don't see it, you can always go under Select. It's under there. See, Refine Edge. I'm going to use the button, and it brings up the Refine Edge dialog box. This is an amazing feature, and we're going to show you some more things on this. We're going to add a feather amount of 5. You can use the slider, but since they give us an exact amount, I'm just going to type it in. And in the output, I'm going to say select layer mask. It will create the image with a layer mask. And there you have it. And a layer mask is just hiding the background. You can edit this. This is non-destructive. This is how I like to work. Hold the Shift key, click on the mask thumbnail. See that giant X? It shows you, here's a layer mask. I call them the ghost images when they're italicized type, because that's not a real alpha channel. If there was another layer, the only thing that's a true alpha channel is this one that's not italicized. This is something else, and it does work for editing, but we're not there yet. So you can just click on this and undo it, but this is what your mask looks like. So this is what you're hiding. Black conceals, white reveals. Okay, let's save this. We're going to close it, Command W. Oh, maximize compatibility. Don't show again. Always maximize compatibility. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to close it. I'm going to open that same image again, browse in Bridge. Open the same image again, the original in Photoshop. There we have it. And I'm going to this time do a save as underscore work v2. So version 2, and save it. This time we're going to use the quick selection tool. This is one of my favorites. Now, sometimes when they come out with a new tool, I'm not always thrilled, but this one is really quite good. I'm going to show you a trick that they don't talk about in the book also. So we've got it all saved and named. We're not going to use the magic wand. We are going to use the quick select. Now, one thing about quick select is the brush size should not be too big. It really works best when you're right around 10, 11. So I'm going to change it. Make sure the hardness is 100%. I'm going to change it to a 10. And it says to select the whole skier, but I'm going to show you a trick. I'm going to select part of the skier, a little part here. And then I'm going to hold down, see there's a plus. It defaults to add to selection. I'm going to hold down the Option key, the Alt key if you're on a PC, and I'm going to go tell Photoshop, I don't want you to select any of this sky when I go to finish my selection. I don't want you to do that. I use this a lot. Oops, I actually shouldn't have done that. Um, I use this a lot because working in news, we get driver's license pictures with that hideous blue for victims and bad guys. So I'm just going to say, just don't select. So let's see how well this works. I'm going around. I want the snowboard. I did accidentally hit the snowboard when I was doing this. Not too bad. Getting there. The boots. The face. The yellow jacket. This. This is an amazing tool, I have to say. I wasn't sure in the beginning, but this is quite a remarkable tool. And there's a tiny bit in there, if you see, I'm going to go to the zoom tool and zoom in, that I didn't quite get. So I'm going to go back to my quick select and get this. See, it's adding to because there's a plus. And then I'm going to hold this. I need a smaller brush. The brush does get bigger when you zoom. So this one didn't work as perfectly as the one I did before I was recording. But it's not too bad. Not a bad selection at all. So we can either go screen size, I think view, screen, fit on screen. Oh, might be. No, there we go, fit on screen. And there we've got the snowboarder all nice and selected. Now again, we're going to save our selection. Select, save selection. This time we'll call it border. Say OK. Now the nice thing about this is if you accidentally deselect or select something you don't want, all you have to do is go to select, load selection. If you have multiple alpha channels, you'll have to look at the drop-down menu, but we've only got border. I'm going to say OK, and there's your selection. It's saved. If you're doing a complex select, now I see somewhere where I would fix it in there, but that's not the major issue. So we've got this, save. So we've got this, and we've saved it, so we can close the file. I'm going to go File, Close, which is Command W on the Mac, Control W on the PC. So we've got that. Now we're going to do a little bit more with Refine Edge. I want you to go to File, Browse and Bridge, and pick PS0504. You can double click it. I'm going to drag it into the icon, and we're going to select this young lady so we can separate her from the background. But hair is tricky, but it's not as tricky as it used to be because we have Refine Edge. So we're going to go back to our magic wand. There are times the magic wand works better than quick select, and select the white. Okay? There she is. I think we don't need the channels right at the moment, so I'm going to gang these up. And there's the selection. Now we've selected the white. We're going to go up to Select Inverse so we can select her. Then we're going to click Refine Edge from the options bar up here. Now you can't see much in the view mode if it's regular view mode, but if you go to the black and white view mode, you can see what's being selected and what's not being selected. And we're going to use the radius slider and make it 100. Okay. Let's see. So now the hair really looks great, but the jacket doesn't. So what we're going to do is use this magical brush and paint on the areas, erase, paint, see, on the areas that we don't want to have that radius slider effect. So this is erasing parts of that selection. The hair is awesome, but the jacket isn't. So I'm going to go in and fix the jacket. It takes a little while to get used to this. So this brush, radius tool, expands the detection area, and erase restores the original edge. So these plus the radius slider are pretty awesome. From the output menu, select layer mask. And now she's on a transparent background, and you could put any background you want behind her. Go ahead and save that and close it, Command W. And we're going to now move to Quick Mask. We're going to open the duck. So File, Browse, and Bridge. Where's that duck? Why don't we open the duck? And I'm going to also open, oops, I went to open, not Browse and Bridge. Browse and Bridge. And I'm also going to get the done one and the penguins and drag those in. So here is the done one. That's what we're going to be doing, adding the duck to the penguin picture. So I'm going to move it over here so it's over in the front. Here's the duck and here's the penguins. Now, this is just to show you Quick Mask. It isn't necessarily the best way to select this guy. I often start with a selection and then refine it with Quick Mask, but you really need to know about Quick Mask. It really helps a lot. So in this exercise, we're just going to paint with Quick Mask. We're not going to start with any selection. Quick Mask lives here underneath your color chips. See, it's a square with a hole in it. It defaults to orange. You can change the color because if you're painting on something that has oranges and reds, you're not going to be able to see what you're doing. But right now we'll be okay with orange. So I'm going to go to Quick Mask. Now you use a brush. The thing you have to understand about Quick Mask is you are only creating a mask just like the marching ants, only it's a step away because you're doing it by hand. Photoshop only recognizes it when it's in marching ant form. So you can't cut it out or do anything when you're in Quick Mask, okay? I also recommend you never use a soft edge brush, you use a hard edge brush because it could end up being very uneven. If you want to soften the edges, do it when you have your final selection. That way it softens it all the way around evenly. So when you're using Quick Mask, there are exceptions, but a better rule is to use a hard edge brush. So I'm just, now black adds and white takes away. So for example, if I go outside, oh no. But it's easy because we're using black and white. You can, these little arrows, but I'd use the X key, watch. Do the same thing as the arrows. You're only working with black and white. So I'm going to make my brush smaller by hitting the left bracket key. I have white on the end of the brush, and I'm going to clean up this edge. So there you have it. Now I'm going to go back in. I'm going to get the beak. And I don't have to worry because I can go back and forth. Now I want a bigger brush now because this inside stuff, it's the edges that really matter. The more you can do an automatic selection on edges in real life, the better because it's cleaner. And there are some things you might have to do by hand. But some of the selection tools have gotten so good that when I teach it now, some of the things that you used to have to do by hand, you can use quick select and all that stuff, and the magnetic lasso, which we haven't gotten to yet. Okay, I'm making it smaller. See, the left bracket key makes mine. And now I'm going to, and here I'm going to change it to white because I want to take some of this orange off. And there's a lot of orange down here. So my selection is going to show, oops, see now the white of my duck got away. So I'm going back and forth between white and black color chips. See, here, now I need black. Black adds to, white takes away. And I took away a little too much there. Okay, let's take a look. Now notice, see when you see those little sparkly things, that means that there's still mask there or no mask there. And this is inverted, so we must invert this. And I don't want that there, so I'm going to go back here and zoom in. Where, see there, little orange? I'm going to go to my brush, make sure there's white, and now I can see better, so I'm going to do a little bit of fixing up those edges because that was not the best selection. Boom, boom, boom. And down here, don't be afraid to zoom. I always forget to zoom, and how much more you can see. Oh, look at that, that beak. That really needs some help, huh? Okay. Kind of like a cooking show. They really don't show you everything because it gets really boring. So I might edit some of this stuff out so you don't get like overly bored. And then I'm going to go with the Q key. Q key, it's a toggle. Now I have my marching ants. Terrific. Oh, there's one. I need white. You see a little orange. Q key. Hallelujah. Now, the duck is selected because I started the other way around. The duck is selected. Okay, we're going to save the selection. So I'm going to pull the channels out so you can see it. I'm going to go to select, save selection, duck, because I did this by hand. I'm saving this. And then I'm going to go copy, Command C, Control C on the PC, and we're not going to copy it into this. We're going to copy it into the penguins, Command V. And now I'm going to get the Move tool, V. See the Move tool? And there's my duck, sitting with the penguins. Well, actually, your book does say start out making a rough selection with the freehand lasso. The reality is, for this particular thing, probably another tool would have been more perfect, but you do need to understand how the quick mask works. So we did it from scratch, which was fine. I'm not doing it again. Save. Ooh, I didn't put work. Save as. Oops, almost saved over the original. I don't want to do that. Underscore work. If I can spell work. Work. And now we're done with the duck. I'm going to close that, don't save it, and close that. So now we're going to get to the pen tool. So we're going to go browse and bridge, and instead of channels, I'm going to gang channels back up with layers. We want to see layers and we want to see paths because we're going to work with the pen tool now. And I always think it's a good idea to see what you're doing. Where I work, I always keep channels and layers separate because 85% of the things I have to do have to have an alpha channel before I save them to go to air. And so I keep channels visible, so I can make sure when I attach it to the order, it has an alpha channel. So we're going to look at paths. We're going to open PS0507, browse in Bridge, PS0507, and we're going to start with the pen tool now. This is a very powerful tool, trust me. I worked with somebody, oh there I pulled channels out, sorry. Okay. The pen tool makes curved lines and straight lines. Linear for straight, Bezier for curved. So we're going to start out with straight. I'm going to start here, click, 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 click. You don't click and hold, you just click and let go. Click, click. These are all linear. Click, 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 click. And the way you tell Photoshop you're done is you hold the Option key and click, oops, I'm sorry, the Command key or the Control key and click in the white area so it doesn't think you're going to join a path. But everything is still there. The white arrow, the black arrow will select all of the path. The white arrow will select individual anchor points. See? Boom. Undo. So when an anchor point is filled, see these are open. I'm going to zoom in here for a moment. See how these are open? You can't really move those with the white anchor point tool, but you can move that one. But when you click it, I usually like to marquee thing around it. So you can select individual anchor points is the whole point. Double click the hand tool to fit on screen, and there is linear points. So here, this is a good example. Now you didn't have to make this perfect. This is just to show you I want to bring these two down. See? So I selected both of them and used the white arrow, the direct selection tool. I want to move this one over to fix it. Move this one down a little bit. This is all linear though. Okay? So we have that. You have to make sure, and I knew mine was in this, when you're in the pen tool, you have to make sure up here in the options bar, it says path, not shape. Because if it says shape, it'll fill it with color, whatever color's in your foreground. So you want it to be a path. If it gives you the option for pixels, it's not going to use the pen tool. It's not going to make a path. Notice in here, work path. I can't remember whether it's in this version or in the cloud version, but in the day, it would never save the work path. I believe it does now, but I'm too paranoid. I always save my path and name it. So for example, this would be linear. Linear, save path, linear. Then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to make my curved path. I don't know if it's going to add it to the linear or not. I can't remember. So I'm going to click. Yeah, it's going to add it to the linear. And I'm going to drag. Oops. And there are the handles. And there's what makes a curved path. Now it's updating what I named linear. If I had wanted this to be on another layer or another path, I'm going to undo. Well, let me undo with his there. I would have had to have made this another path. Click. It's highlighted. Ooh. And now I'm going to have the Bezier or curved path on a different layer. So you can update layers, curve. Now, the thing about curves is you can't let go of your mouse button. You curve and pull in the direction that you're going in. Okay? So you want to curve and pull. Your book says to pull it as high as the curve. I'm a little more conservative than that. So whatever works for you. And pull down, click and drag. As soon as you click and drag, you're going to make a curved path. If you just click, you're going to make a linear path. And then click. Oops, I should have clicked and dragged. So let me undo. Will it delete and let me... So I think it was the Command key I held down. Illustrator's all about the pen tool. I don't like the way this anchor point is, so I'm going to go to my pen tool. The one thing in the pen tool you want to make sure is clicked is auto add delete. It's great. See, I don't like this. If I go over an anchor point, there's a minus sign. If I go over a blank part of the line, there's a plus sign. So I'm going to go over here, delete that anchor point. Whenever you add an anchor point, it's always a curve. If you want it to be linear, you're going to have to convert it. Oops, you want to go in the direction you're going in. Now I'm going to use a modifier key, which is the Command key or Control key on the PC, and pull this down into place. Pull the handles. So you see, this is the curved or Bezier path. I'm going to curved. And now that's saved as well. I'm going to save this. A couple more things I want to show you before we get to the next pen exercise is breaking the handles. For example, here are handles, right? No, we've got two. Sometimes it's easier to get your curve right if the handles aren't locked together. I believe you have to do that with the convert tool. Let's see, that lives with the pen, convert. So I'm going to go here. The convert tool there, the convert tool is good for about two things: breaking handles and converting to linear back to Bezier. And then break the handle. And then you want your white tool. You're going to use the white arrow more than anything. The other thing you might want to do, see, I'm going to break these too, see, is on this one, this last, oops, I just accidentally, see, if you forget you're in the convert tool, I'm going to convert it back to Bezier, and I don't need this last handle, this one up here. Now, sometimes you don't want both direction handles if you're at the end, like here, or if you have a different kind of curve coming up that this is going to interfere with. So you can hold down your Option key or your Alt key, depending on what platform you're on. Click your anchor point and it'll get rid of that second direction handle, which you don't need. And we don't need it here. Notice we can start to move these things around. So we've got this separate, we've got this separate. It gives you a lot of control. The thing about the pen tool, I'm going to save this, is that you need to practice. I remember the first time I started using it, it was so awkward. I'm going to save this and we're going to close this and File, Browse and Bridge. We're going to open the apples. And we're going to put a path around this apple. See, we don't have any paths in here anymore. So let's zoom in a little bit here. I'm going to double click the hand tool. Fit on screen. I'm going to get my pen. And I'm going to start to Oh, I don't want to look at channels, I want to look here. Okay. And that little asterisk means we're starting. There's our start point. Now I'm going to pull. Now the thing is, the beauty of the pen tool is you can edit it beyond every tiny little thing. Now, I like less is more. The fewer anchor points I have, I find it easier to control, but sometimes you just have no choice. Now I'm going to go to my direct selection tool, click on here, and move some things around. I'm going to move this handle. Now I'd like to break that handle. So I think I can use a modifier key, maybe, maybe not. Shift option, no. I want to get the convert tool because I want to break the handles. So I'm going to, see, I broke the handle there, and now I need the white arrow there, and I can bring the handle back in here, and I can move this like this. There's a little blip. So I think with this one I want to break the handle also. There, I broke the handle. I need the white arrow key to, that's my dog making all that noise, by the way. I don't know what she's dropping, but she wants my attention. And there's one more thing here. I'm going to zoom in. Actually, I'm going to pause. I want to fix, I think I need, see, I don't quite have the stem. So I'm going to go back to the pen tool. I'm going to add an anchor point here. Now, like I said, it always adds curved anchor points. So I'm going to move this up a little bit, so which messed up everything else, right? I'm going to break the handle here. I'm going to get my white arrow, pull that there. Now that looks kind of funky, so I'm going to add another anchor point there. Now if I pull that out and push these handles in a little bit, pull this out, if I add an anchor point here, pull this out, add an anchor point here, and convert it to linear, and pull it in, and then add an anchor point here and convert it to linear. Now I know the modifier keys better than you, so you might have to keep going back. That's the one thing that gets frustrating, especially when you're first learning the pen tool. If you don't know the modifier keys, you're going back and forth to the toolbox a lot. But after a while, you do get to know them, and you'll realize the power in the pen tool. And there you have it. Oh, I see a little, I want to just close this off a little bit. Is this, are these separate? Yeah, close that off a little bit. And I'm going to add an anchor point. That's pretty good. I see my work path. I'm going to change it to Apple, so it saves it. There we go. And now what we're going to do is add hue saturation, and automatically, because it had a path around it, not marching ants, it gave us a vector mask, which means we can always change, again, because it's the pen tool, we can change the anchor points, and we can change the lines and all that good stuff. Okay, now to make this green, our book says change the hue to 116. Yay, it worked. But now see, you can see where you need a little bit of editing on your vector mask. So you're going to get your white arrow, click on the vector mask, and pull things around a little bit. You could pull this out just a tiny bit, see? It really gives you a lot of control. And there you have it. This should come in a tiny bit. And this should, I think there's an anchor. There we go. Oops. I might even add another, let's see, there we go. Let's see. Let me get the end here. There we go. And I would even put one here. There you go. So you can keep editing a vector mask with the pen tool. And with a layer mask, you can edit. Let me go back to. You can edit a layer mask by painting, but you edit a path. And we have one more pen tool exercise. So I'm going to close the apples. Let me move this out of the way. We saved it. We've got a path and a vector mask. I'm going to go to Browse and Bridge and open this door. We're going to start off. We're going to do a Save As. And we're going to call it _work. And save. Okay, great. So we've got it as work. And we're going to get the pen tool and start out with, there's our pen tool. We're going to make the first, oops, I didn't get the pen tool, there it is. The first horizontal line, linear. And we're going to go up here and drag the handles out, and then drag the handles down, and then hold the Option key and click so we get rid of that handle, and then drag, do a linear down here, linear, 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 no dragging, linear, linear, and then there's our circle, and we meet back at the beginning. Notice here's our work path. I would like to see that bigger. I didn't realize panel options. I hadn't done that on paths. There it is. There's your path. Now we have our path, and the way you convert a path to a selection, there's a number of ways, but see this little thing here? Load path as selection. This loads it filled with the foreground color with a stroke. This loads the path as a selection. There's our selection. Go to selection, save selection, and now you've got it as a saved alpha channel, as a path, and here's the image. And don't kid yourself, sometimes when I'm really working on something important, I like to have, and I've worked a long time making the selection, getting it nice and perfect, I might have both the path and the alpha channel. So there you have it, the powerful pen tool.